Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bears on Tap. Long time no talk. Seems like maybe just yesterday we were having a discussion on a new member to the future of the Chicago Bears. But as you see in my name, the Chicago Bears did not waste any time, and no less than 48 hours after hiring their new GM Ryan Poles, our new head coach is in the building. Matt Eberflus, the former defensive coordinator from the Indianapolis Colts. So we're here to discuss that news amongst many other things. But today I'm joined by Ron Luce at Luce on Tap, Joey Ricotta at The Riot 326, and Quintin Crisco. Did I get that right?
Nailed it.
Really? First try?
Yeah.
Dude, tell me how I get so many like last names wrong throughout the season of like players that we hear as names on TV all the time. And I just I thought of your name, I sounded it out in my head, and I just went out for it. But Mr. Button and the resident Matt Eberflus guy, he has a article that I think came out, what was it, like 2 weeks ago, right? 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it would have been a few weeks ago.
And that kind of is the blueprint to what all ended up happening in the long run. And now, like I said, we have a new head coach. But Quentin, we'll start with you. What are your initial thoughts on the head coach hiring for our Chicago Bears?
So when I was writing these head coach articles, I was going through a lot of data on a lot of these guys. And I'll be honest, this is one guy I kept coming back to in my mind as like, he feels like a good football coach. Like, especially as I was looking at some of the offensive guys, like it was, man, yeah, they run a good offense, but I was questioning, how much they can really run a team and how much they can make sure that the team's disciplined, they take care of what they're supposed to take care of, they work hard. And that's what I kept coming back to with him is the way that he motivates his guys, the way that he holds players accountable is just, it's something to be admired from a coach. And it's something that I keep coming back to and feel good about with him. I feel like he's just a good leader and a good head coach in general. So maybe not the most exciting hire, but there's definitely a lot to like with this guy.
Yeah, and I think like something that I saw earlier today is like, with Caldwell and with Quinn, you know what you're going to get. The element of the unknown is what I think is the most interesting about Eberflus. And like, it was crazy because when you wrote that article, I was watching the in-season Hard Knocks, which was actually the Indianapolis Colts. And I just remember seeing him speak, and I'm like, wait a second, that's the guy that the Bears are, linked to. And then sure shit, 2 weeks later, we're back on the pod, within 24 hours to discuss the new head coach. So I thought it was kind of like, wow, everything kind of came together. But from what I've seen, and just if you watch the Colts defense this season, I know maybe they weren't the best in points per game, but as far as like scheme, they had a lot of good players, so that helps out. But the X's and O's were on point, and they kept them in a lot of their games. I know they didn't make the playoffs. They missed out at the end of the season because they couldn't take out the Jacksonville Jaguars. But that's one small dink in a very polished football resume from the cradle of coaches in the MAC from Toledo. So, I mean, he's an Ohio guy. But, Joey, what were your initial thoughts on this hire?
Initial thoughts – wasn't the guy I wanted originally. I mean, we spent I don't know how much time last night sitting here talking about Jim Caldwell as obviously one of the three finalists that were mentioned with, Dan Quinn and Matt Eberflus. And we were like, yeah, I don't know how we all came to that. We all kind of agreed that we liked Jim Caldwell the best, but once this got announced, and then, I knew that Quintin had his profile, and I dug a little bit deeper. And of course, I read your profile, Quintin, and does not disappoint. I encourage anybody that's listening to this to check that out because it's very in-depth, covers a lot of ground, as all of his profiles do. But I ended up learning a ton, and I looked into him a little bit deeper as far as just some other articles I was able to dig up. And like you said, Bdon, like, looking at, some of his clips and stuff, how he talks to players, how he communicates, how well of a leader that he is, because that was one of the big questions that I had was, can he actually lead, not being a defensive coordinator or being a linebackers coach? Can he actually be a leader? It's pretty clear to me now, the deeper I've dug into this, I think he's very capable of being a leader, and I do like his defensive scheme, which you can say what you want about the Tampa 2, but it's a little bit more modified than just the original Tampa 2, which got its inception in 96 with Tony Dungy, obviously. But, that was built off of the Steel Curtain, in the 70s. So, and that was modified. Tony Dungy modified the Tampa 2 around the Steel Curtain. So as the game evolves, you get these modifications. Eberflus is modifying that from the 90s. I like it, man. I think he could be a hell of a coach, and maybe we got a good one here.
And I don't even hate, like, in the Tampa 2 with Eddie Jackson just sitting back there at all times waiting to jump routes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've been craving Eddie Jackson touchdowns and Eddie Jackson to make these big plays. I think in a different scheme, it opens the field up more for him to do that. And I think, too, like, I know, like I said, the Colts were kind of like – they were that team that if they got to the playoffs, right, nobody wanted to play them. It just so happened to be that they didn't get to the playoffs. It was the weirdest, like, from, like, America's, like, underdog to get to the playoffs and make some noise to, like, wow, we just lost. But I think, like, if you look at some of the other stops on the way, so like I said, he played football, and I'll get to you in 1 second, Ron. He played football at Toledo, was a grad assistant to coach there. He had one other stop in college at Mizzou, and then his other stops before this are the Cleveland Browns, the Dallas Cowboys, and then the Indianapolis Colts, and now he's our head coach. So he's a guy that I think one of the things, too, that when you, like, not that I'm like a job recruiter or whatever, but when you look at his resume, he's not flipping. He's not going, somewhere for a year and leaving. He's there for 3, 4, 5 years at a time, which means sustained success, a good relationship with your players, and an even better relationship with the people that are in charge of you, I guess you would say. But before I go off the rails on our new head coach, Ron, what were your initial thoughts on Mr. Eberflus?
Joey, hit me with what you got really quick. I know you got something juicy for me. Tee me up. Come on.
I don't even know if it said juicy, but it just like Bdon kind of got my mind going too. Was he was saying that he's not leaving. Normally, the staff that he's on doesn't leave either, and I know that's like a point that Quintin brought up in his article. But I was looking at even the coaching that he did maybe in college and all this. Like a lot of the staffs, they stick together on like the teams that he's coached. Like they don't leave. Like that speaks volumes to me because it's like they believe in this core and they believe in Eberflus. And like a lot of these coaches that he's worked under, they speak very, very highly about him. And I mean, I don't know why I'm doing it with my hand.
Eberflus. I'm like one of the little green dudes in the little crane machine in Toy Story. Eberflus.
Dude, and that's funny that you mentioned the Hard Knocks thing too. And I'll kick it to you real fast, Ron. But like the clip that always comes to mind too with like the Eeyore, you want to be like Eeyore? Don't do that. Don't be Eeyore. And then when you said the Eberflus, I don't know. I was just thinking that. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. I put that in the description for people because, I mean, when you're reading the article, they probably don't put that in there for you, but it is Eberflus. I know it could be Eberflus. I don't know how you want to say it, but it's Eberflus.
Eberflus. No, that was actually really helpful because I was mispronouncing it all day. So thank you, Bdon. I appreciate you. But no, I mean, I think too another thing that is kind of resonating that obviously Quintin and Joey both made great points, but just like think about like the length of time on coaching staffs. I agree. That was a big part of why I chose to go play at St. Xavier was because of the consistency they had in a coaching staff. Like it was the same guys year in, year out. Like they wanted to be there. There was a reason they were there, and that made me want to be there. You know what I mean? Same thing is happening with Eberflus right now as kind of he's, worked his way up the ranks. And in addition, though, like he's put in the time. And I know that sounds so friggin' old school and I hate it, but it's true. Like if you're good at what you do and you've done it for a long time, you're good at it. Like, yeah, it's been at various levels, but like he's done it for 30 years almost. I mean, it's an insane number of years that he's been a coach anywhere, Toledo, to Mizzou, to finally jumping to the NFL, hanging out with the Cowboys, going to the Browns, and then, to the Colts, and now here. Like, he's made his way up, and he's made an impact. And I don't know about you guys, but, I have this weird sense of trust for guys that come out of Indy because I feel like Ballard and Reich are just this powerhouse that nobody talks about because they play in the Midwest and we say open, you know what I mean? Like, that's the only reason nobody talks about Indianapolis. If they were in a big market, Like if they were the New York Giants, are you fucking shitting me? It would
they'd open SportsCenter every night.
Yes, exactly. So that's where I'm like, I feel good about this. Like he's coming from a good place. Like fun fact that I enjoyed, and this actually gave me a little bit of a little bump on him too, was Eberflus was actually picked by Josh McDaniels when he initially took the job. And then when McDaniels backed out, Wright kept him. That shows a lot. Bro, like if you get
He said you're not leaving.
Yeah, like you're clearly good. And so like, and here's the thing is I had this debate with my dad tonight too. And this is where I'll turn it back to you Bdon after this point. But I had this debate with my dad. And you know, for people that have played football at any level, you understand this. Like when you understand what your opposition is going to do so well, don't you think that can help like your own team on offense? Like if you're that truly good defensively as like a mind, you'll be able to help teach Justin Fields like keys and tips and cues and things to watch for as a defense. Like look at some of the best teams in the league right now. Sure, Andy Reid's an offensive head coach, but like look at the Buffalo Bills. Dermot's a defensive coach, but DeBoll ran that offense effectively and they had a great complete team. Like it's happened year in and year out. And let's be honest, the Bears haven't been as successful since Lovie Smith left. Like he was a defensive head coach. Like Mark Trestman and Matt Nagy are the sexy hires that are offensive minds. Like they aren't that sexy in hindsight. So I feel like this is a thing where people are kind of freaking out, or not everybody, but some people are like kind of freaking out, I think, too early. Like let it happen. Let's see who he gets as an OC. I know we were talking about homeboy from San Francisco for reasons earlier, but for Eberflus reasons. But like I feel like there's a good chance here that this could be something that's at least fun. Like the Bears will be fun in 2022 and show promise. And like maybe we actually will see Justin Fields take that next step. So I like the hire. It's grown on me more as the day has rolled on, and I'm sure it'll keep growing on me. The more and more I like, again, go back and read Quintin's article because I've read it twice and I'm gonna read it again. So like just it's one of those things. The more and more I read about him, the more and more I like him.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that was like the closing notes from last night that we tried to emphasize was qualified. We want a coach that's qualified. He has earned his right to now become a head coach in the NFL. He's, been a linebacker. His right. Yeah, he's been a linebacker coach. He's been a coordinator. It's now his time to become a head coach. I know Bears fans were disappointed because you wanted like that splash hire or like, but like
the sexy hire.
Yeah, but like what Ron said, those haven't worked out in the past. Sometimes you got to go with the safe pick. Sometimes you just got to throw 100 on red and then just leave. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's what the Bears did with Eberflus. And I think like I'm going to go full meatball for my favorite part of the signing is like the dude was a baller in college in the MAC. So he's a MACtion guy. He was like a linebacker. So I can only imagine. I got to find a picture of him playing. I can see like a neck roll, like a mullet, like a real football guy looking motherfucker.
Bdon. It's
day.
In the article.
Plug it. Yeah, plug it.
I'm going to have to pull it. But
I
got to check that out.
It's the first picture.
All right. And either way, like as a guy that what we talked about last night with polls, guy that played the game, a guy that understands the game of football. Coaches that are players tend to have that better understanding unless you're Mike Singletary, who apparently reached out for the job. But and I love Mike Singletary. He's a Bears like coaches in the world. But I think like defensively, with what we already have in place, we have the blueprint, we have quality players, go out and be aggressive in free agency, aggressive in the draft. That has more to do with the GM. But now that you have the head coach, you have an idea for what players fit the mold of your systems, So like we talked about last night, we're going to lose some of the guys that we thought were a big part of this team because of things like that. So we'll see what happens in the long run. But I'm excited about it. I was a little nervous and worried at the beginning, like Joey said, where I was just kind of like, I don't know too much about this guy, but like I also said at the beginning, the unknown kind of has me excited. And I guess I'm at like 70-30 on like excited, nervous, because we always get let down by the Bears, but this guy is very qualified and well represented by what he did with the Colts most recently.
I'm about there too, Bdon. I'm about 70-30 still because I don't want to be too high. I don't want to be too
Yeah.
low either. So I've kind of talked myself up into being like above at like 50-50.
Above average,
Like,
yeah. Like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
optimistic about it. I don't want to be like, because you know what?
yeah.
As Bears fans, we spend so much time, slamming our dick in a desk drawer, being negative, absolutely hating everything about everything. You know what I'm saying? And
And they've
the
given
guy,
us no reason not to be
yeah,
like that, but
these two guys have literally done nothing but show up and fucking sign a piece of paper for a new job, and that is it. And literally that is it. They haven't messed anything up yet. And like I said last night with polls, until further review, they are not on the shit list. And they're football guys. That's like, remember like 3-4 months ago, we were always talking about how we just didn't have football guys in, the right positions. If we can get rid of Phillips, we'll be in a very good position to have football guys in all of the high positions. But like I said, players, coaches, I don't know the exact amount of years, but Ron, you had alluded to like 20 to 30 years already coaching. So very, very well deserved in my opinion.
Yeah, very well deserved. And again, like I feel like, we've all touched on it in various ways, but like, sure, maybe he's not the sexy hire, but sometimes it's okay to go away from the sexy hire. Like, was Sean Dermott a sexy hire in Buffalo? No. But like, look what it's yielded. Sure, yeah, they got beat by the Chiefs because of a coin flip. Like, they were there. Like, they were a favorite to be a Super Bowl.
The dumbest rule in the world. Or dumbest,
I hate that shit, yeah.
Like this
that was like the worst ending to the best weekend of football of all time, dude. So anticlimactic, yeah. And you know what the crazy thing is too, Ron? All the other overtime games in the season, bro, had like 4 possessions. Like they were just like no one wanted to win those games, but that game, instant curtains. I'm like, fuck, dude.
Yeah, and it's just like I feel like when people really consider it, like that Buffalo team's gonna be good too for like a couple more years. So like I think we can all confidently sit here and be like, sometimes the non-sexy hire, pardon me, is okay. And like, let's see where it goes, right? Let's see who the OC pick is. Let's see how the rest of the staff fills out. Let's see what they do in the offseason. Like Poles still gets the draft, and he still gets to sign free agents before the Bears ever play a snap in this 2022 season. Like this team is not going to look the same. And Bdon, you kind of alluded to this on yesterday's show. Like, don't be surprised if it's an aggressive offseason. It might not be a sexy aggressive offseason where he goes out and spends a ton of money, but like they might be active in like flipping names in and out and like depth pieces being different. And like they might try and do that pretty quickly just to see what happens, because once this team gets out of this like dead cap crap that's coming up over the next like 2 to 3 seasons, like I'm intrigued to see where they go. Obviously, if Fields continues to ball out, he'll be a big chunk of that, but who knows, right? I mean, Quintin, I feel like you got to help me here, because I feel like
So I was actually just before this, I was kind of doing some light research on an article idea about really how Indy structured their defense, how they built it through free agency, through the draft, what they did, and starting to look through it all, you start to realize, man, a lot of their signings are reclamation projects, cheap. $2 million, $1 million deals, aside from Justin Houston was one that they splurged on, and the trade for DeForest Buckner. Those were the 2 big things they did. Trade. The 3 technique and the edge rusher.
They draft well too. Looking like a guy like Darius Leonard.
That's also where I'm going with it. You look at their defensive drafting since Eberflus has gotten there. He's built that defense on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks. I mean, he is not getting the first round studs. They took their first defensive first round pick in his time there this past year with Quiddy Pay. Outside of that, they are all mid-round guys, which tells me that Ryan Poles is probably going to be trading down in this draft to get more draft picks in the mid-rounds, because Eberflus is going to want to build back up that depth on the defense. And even with Indy, look at those mid-round guys they took that weren't necessarily hits. They were high-ceiling guys. They were guys he could still play for 60, 70% of the snaps and get by with. Really, his player development is pretty impressive on the defensive side of the ball there in Indy, because they do not have a star-studded defense. I mean, hell, they signed a 30-year-old Xavier Rhodes and 2nd-round pick Rocky Sin at quarter. You know, they weren't playing with some studs out there. And they're just very good defense. They've been top 10 the last 2-3 years, I think. It's DeForest Buckner's a monster. That's the guy you can't make up for there. And he developed Darius Leonard too. There's just a lot to like.
Quintin, it's late, right? Like, we should be getting ready to settle down and sleep well that the Bears have finally made a decision. I'm ready to run through the nearest wall I can find after that. Because you bring up so many good points. No, you really do, because that's the impressive thing about Indy. Like, that was that comfort I was alluding to earlier about, like, he's coming from Indy, because Indy does so well in that type of stuff, and you hit on every single thing. I think all 4 years they were a top 10 defense. I think the first 2 years, I think they were literally number 10, and then they were better the last two. But, like, it was as he built that defense, and exactly what you said, and the amount of guys, like, do you guys remember Pat McAfee when he going up to the podium and picking Bobby Okereke? Bobby Okereke was actually like a contributor on that defense. Like, and it was like a 4th round pick, like a guy that everybody.
I think he's their starting Mike in Tampa
yes.
too.
Yes,
like
literally,
he's not just a role player; he has a major role in that defense.
Which is funny, because Pat McAfee joked, like, you know, future Hall of Famer, blah blah blah, and like, this dude's actually contributing. He's not like a Mr. Irrelevant pick that they hyped up for no reason. That's just what Indy does, and that's why they've been so successful. And sure, maybe it's not the quickest, sexiest turnaround that they've ever needed, but like, they make do and like take advantage of situations. Like, Jonathan Taylor falls to you. Take advantage of having a great running back and like try and help your offense be a better running offense. Like, you built that offensive line, use them. Like,
that's the real beauty of it to me. That mid-round development on the defensive side, it allows you to use the premium picks on the offensive side, like the Colts did on Quentin Nelson, on Jonathan Taylor. You know, the Colts brought in some high-round offensive guys, and that's, I mean, that Colts team was not good when they first got there. You know, they were not laden with talent.
No.
And it really that development of those mid and late round guys on the defense allowed them to focus the premium stuff on the offense, which sounds great when you're talking about Justin Fields.
Oh, and I think too, something that goes without being said is like what you said, he's finding these players in the late rounds, and they turned the Colts from what were they when they got there, maybe like 3-13, 2-14, into a perennial over 500 team that is either in the playoffs or, you know, they missed by half a game this year on some not necessarily like fluke shit, but, you know, you win, you're in type situation. So I think like with the Bears' current state of the roster, you know, you look at it, there's a few marquee guys. You think of like Roquan, you think of like Khalil Mack, and you think of what we want Justin Fields to be. I think with Eberflus, you're going to get a guy that doesn't make an excuse or try to deflect blame like our previous Matt because of the guys in the locker room. You know what I'm saying? So I think like regardless of who we go to war with, we're going to see tangible like progress from what we've seen in years past under a different coach. I know people like try to say like the coach isn't the one out there making the plays, but something that we've hammered home on this podcast for as long as I can remember is your job as a coach is to put your players in the best position to make those plays. And, you know, the bald fraud was not very good at doing that.
So real quick, just as you're talking about that, we can bring up Matt Eberflus's philosophy in Indy. He called it HITS, HITS. Hustle, intensity, taking the ball away, smarts, as in being situationally smart and intelligent and knowing your opponent. I mean, that's just football. I mean, it's football guyisms, 100%. But I love it.
You need to stop it. I'm not going to be able to sleep now. My adrenaline is through the roof. Because again, as football nerds, as football diehards, as all four of us are here on this show tonight, like that's exactly what you want in a football team. Like, because that's football. That's football at the core of it. And it's just, again, and you know what? Here's the thing. And this is, you guys are going to love this. I know you will, because I actually joked about this earlier. In the Midwest, we say, oh, you know what else we do in the Midwest? We just get the job done. Lunch pail type football. Like, we like big hitters. We like the Big Ten. We like the MAC. Like, come on. We like Jaranara and all things.
We like running the damn football and cold weather and hard hits and neck rolls and shit.
We like being known for defense and running backs. we've never been known for a quarterback, and I think that's going to change. I love me some Justin Fields, but like that's what, and like Eberflus fits that mold. He fits the blue collar Chicagoan attitude, and I think that's why he's going to become a loved head coach because of that attitude and just hit and play football, boys. Be smart, hit everybody, take the ball away. Let's score a lot of points. Let's win a lot of games and had a good time.
I think
you know what I kind of think he is the Lovie Smith who uses cuss words.
Oh, let's go. Let's go.
Yes.
There we go.
Let's go. Quintin, I'm glad you brought that up because I would love nothing more than for Lovie Smith to make his return to the Chicago Bears as a defensive coordinator. How realistic is it? I don't know. But the Texans fired David Culley, so which means whoever takes over as the head coach of the Texans, they can either choose to keep him or choose to get rid of him. Now, the Texans were top 10 in takeaways this season, which after being like really bad in takeaways last year. So, and that's a Lovie Smith thing. Another thing that Eberflus preaches, obviously, and the Tampa 2, they have all that in common. And obviously, I think they've exchanged notes actually when Eberflus was in Missouri, that they exchanged notes about the Tampa 2. So they have some type of connection. I don't know how realistic it is, but if they don't want to retain Lovie Smith as a defensive coordinator in Houston, let's go, baby. I'm all for the reunion as a coordinator.
Well, so I can speak a little of their connection there. So when Eberflus got to Dallas, Monty Kiffin was the D coordinator. Monty Kiffin, one of the fathers of the Tampa 2.
Legend.
And then he worked multiple years there with Rob Marinelli, who was also one of the, godfathers of the Tampa 2, a Lovie Smith guy, both Tony Dungy guys, like all the ties to the Lovie Smith, Tony Dungy connections are pretty heavy there for Eberflus. And just looking at some of the rumors coming out about his assistants, it seems like Rob Marinelli is really campaigning for this guy right now. Yeah, I mean, Rich Bisaccia seems like he's coming here if he doesn't get the head job in Vegas. Like Marinelli might be coming, who knows? So Marinelli's clearly going to work for this guy as far as like trying to convince other assistants that this is the place to go. So those connections seem pretty heavy to me.
And I would be totally fine, like happy with if he was a defensive line coach like Marinelli or even coordinator, or if he was defensive line coach and Lovie was defensive coordinator. Dude, I'm thrilled. I am so fucking thrilled. Bisaccia, you got the Italian Stallions on the defensive and special teams coordinators. Like, let's fucking go.
Everyone's coming in with like these big gold chains to the game, like how the Sox do and stuff. You know,
Rich Bisaccia's got a special focaccia bread he's bringing.
Yeah,
I always want my D-line coach to have wrestled a bear once in his life.
Yeah,
and Rob Marinelli's the only guy who checks that box.
It's good to build character. I think that. All right, so on the topic of wrestling a bear, and I know Eberflus isn't an offensive guy, but I'll ask you guys this question. As like we see this team take on a new identity, do you think they potentially bring back the most vaunted position in football and fullback?
If they go with the Shanahan coordinator, absolutely. Those guys love their fullbacks.
Yeah, I fucking love me a good fullback. Everybody knows that.
Especially in Milwaukee.
I too love me a fullback as well, because actually one of my best friends, both in high school and college, we played together. He ultimately became a fullback in college.
See, that's dope.
It was sweet. It was dope. It was a good time.
You're literally just a battering ram.
You're a battering ram. You're a battering ram that can catch passes out of the backfield. You're just you know what you are? You are the like all-star version of a blocking tight end, but like you catch more passes than them because you come out of the backfield. Like you're the cool kid.
I like how
you're kind of a cool
kid. The Niners' use of a fullback is how every team should use a goddamn fullback, and it shouldn't be even a question.
I love me an I formation. I also love me a T formation. Hence us being Bears fans. Even our boy Alap is in the comments now. He's joining us tonight, guys. We missed him yesterday.
He's so mad that we didn't hire Harbaugh. He said, "You guys, he's not a Bears fan anymore." Wow, they change up so fast.
Wow, say it ain't so, man. I think you're back on
Yeah,
board a little
bro.
bit now, right?
Say it with us.
I don't know how you're not. I'm so jacked up right now. I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to be up till 2 a.m. I'm going to be texting the
I
three
want
of
to see
you,
his highlights.
just being like, dude, I'm
I want to see the
I'm
college
here.
highlights. Tell
I
me.
want to see his hit sticks, bro. I got to check his hit sticks
Dude,
out.
you go see his pad level. You know he laid the
I
boom.
just went and looked at the picture while we were talking, bro. Holy fuck! And like too, now it's like if you had all right, so if you know like the Madden meter, you can change your pad level, right? You tilt yours all the way to the right. That's Matt Eberflus at Toledo. You tilt yours all the way to the left. That's Michael Bennett on the Seahawks. Like,
dude, look at it, like, because for all these coaching profiles, I tried to find a picture of them as like a player, or like back when they were in college, wherever they played. And looking at some of these pads, it was just like, God dang, do you think they even felt anything?
Football was such a different sport back in the day, bro.
Dude, they had on like you remember, have you guys ever seen the movie that I think it's Invincible with Vince Papale?
Yes.
Like
That's a good movie.
He takes off the huge pads and he puts on like the little like training pad.
The original Michael Bennett.
Like, dude, like he's like, what's it gonna matter? I'm not gonna be playing here in like a week. So
and two, it's like, dude, we all grew up in the era. If we all played football, so we grew up in the era where you had to fucking, your pads came separate, bro. You had to stuff them in your pants and do the whole thing, and then jump into your pants because, it's different. Now it's just like the whole uniform is different. People don't really wear thigh pads and knee pads and the pants are a different material and all that type of shit. So it's like, I imagine Eberflus trying to put in his fucking hip pads in his girdle, like with his fucking, his beefed up shoulder pads and like a 3-bar face mask, just like a straight lunch pail guy.
For anyone that's not.
You are straight up fucking dating every single one of us right now with that shit. You need to stop it right now.
For anyone that's not watching the video and just listening to the podcast part, Bdon literally just did like the equivalent of Aaron Rodgers shoving his immunized toe in the camera, except he shoved like his hip in the camera.
If you watched last night, I put my sock up to the screen when we were talking about Aaron Rodgers. But we have an Aaron Rodgers minute at the end of the episode.
That was the Adam Sandler, the frostbite toe.
The frostbite toe. Oh my fucking god, that movie, dude! What movie was that? I forgot what movie.
Mr. Deeds.
Mr. Deeds. Yeah.
I like Deeds. I don't know why.
They like chop his toe off, dude. I might have to. Now I'm gonna watch an Adam Sandler movie when we're done to fall asleep tonight.
Yeah, frostbite.
He's the goat, dude.
Not freezer burn.
Yeah, no frostbite. It was freezer burn. It's like a bag of peas, bro. Just a fucking bag of peas. But
we went off the rails already.
100%. Well, I think like as much as we'd love to sit here and just continue to just go off about Eberflus, you gotta wait until he starts making moves. You gotta wait until we see him on the job.
Yeah, we don't want to overhype him.
Yeah, we can only go based off of what we've seen, and it's like if you look at all his different stops, he's worked for 3 NFL teams, 2 college teams. He is from Toledo. He's a star at Toledo, and he coached there. So it's like that's a guy that literally lived almost like the American dream, and now he's at the point where he's at the pinnacle of his coaching career, and that's a guy that probably wants to succeed just as much as we want him to succeed. So as much as Quintin said, now as I'm doing it, I don't want to get too excited about it, but I will say I am less than cautiously optimistic. I am just optimistic at this point.
Yeah. That's a great point, Bdon. Like, that's the way to be, I think, about this. Like, be optimistic, but don't go overboard to the point where you're like, the Bears are going to the Super Bowl right now. Yes, we're probably still going to believe that.
We don't have the Jimmies and Joes.
I know. I can tell you this. The Bears played this perfectly by teasing Dan Quinn this whole time because it just, like, made this so much more exciting that it's not Dan Quinn for me.
It would have been a boring hire.
Yeah, bro. No, because you know what happens. Like Dan Quinn, if he, because he's calling offense, right? In Dallas, that's it. He's not
the defense
or defense. Yeah, defense. If he goes back to being a head coach, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. He's gonna do the same dumb shit that he was doing with the Falcons. So it's like with Eberflus, We don't know what he's like offensively. We know it can't be any worse than what we just had, and we had a so-called guru, an offensive guru, a guru tractor beam, just like in Austin Powers. But you know what I'm saying? So the element of the unknown, the fact that he's probably not going to be the guy calling plays. So who we're going to get is going to be an offensive specialist. And before we close out, I guess we should probably touch on the speculative part of who we think. But Quintin, could you go over the list of candidates and then let's highlight, no pun intended, our favorite candidate from San Francisco.
So Adam Hogue put out an article actually just this afternoon about this, and the guys that he was linking were, let's see, he had Clint Kubiak, Mike Kafka, Pep Hamilton, Kevin O'Connell, Kevin Patullo, who's the Eagles pass game coordinator. So these other guys, I should clarify.
I don't know if Kubiak, I want that guy.
Well, so he was in Indy for 3 years before that.
Okay,
which is what's nice. Yeah. But I don't know how. There's not a lot to know about Kevin Patullo, though. He's kind of an unknown here. So Clint Kubiak, Gary Kubiak's son, he was the co-offensive coordinator in Minnesota last year. Yeah. So Shanahan links there through Kubiak. Kubiak coached and played under Mike Shanahan for years. Their offenses are very similar. So Clint Kubiak's offense is very similar to his dad's. Mike Kafka, Chicago area guy, Kansas City QB coach. He's out of contract right now, so he's available. He doesn't need to be allowed to go anywhere by anyone. He can just go. And I believe he played at Northwestern.
Yes, correct. He was a Northwestern quarterback.
So former Northwestern great. Pep Hamilton, he was QB coach in Houston, former Bears coach. He's been around the league. He helped Andrew Luck develop in Indy. He couldn't help Rex Grossman develop, but who could? And then Kevin O'Connell is I believe, the offensive coordinator in LA under McVay. So he doesn't call plays, but he's another Shanahan guy. Or a McVay guy, which falls under that same Shanahan thing, similar style with that wide zone running scheme.
Is he the guy that holds him back on the sideline since he doesn't call the plays?
I think that's how he got his start.
That's fucking incredible.
And then finally, the one that everybody is excited about is Mike McDaniel, the San Fran offensive coordinator who talks about Mike Jones at his press conferences and will only go to a state that has legalized weed.
Yep. Say that louder for the people in the back, that last part.
So the thing with McDaniel, though, is he is still under contract, so Shanahan would have to let him leave, which McDaniel has been with Shanahan every place that Shanahan has gone. They're like their best friends. So if McDaniel has aspirations to be a head coach, he probably needs to check off that play calling box, which means he would need to go someplace else. Shanahan, who knows, maybe he'll let him be like, yeah, go, because you're my friend and I want to see you go succeed. Or maybe he'll be like, screw you, you're not going anywhere.
Are we sure that Shanahan doesn't enjoy a doobie every once in a while?
Oh,
no. I mean, if his best friend's Mike McDaniel, I can almost guarantee it.
That's what I'm saying.
He motioned freaking Trent Williams on a 4th and 1 or whatever in the Dallas game. Coach tell me he doesn't dabble every once in a while.
That's got 420 written all over it.
Oh, yeah, bro. Disgusting. That is the king of overthinking. Like, unless you are literally just like to have the anxiety that you overthink everything in life, the only way you do that is if you're like, oh, I'm a little, woo, and you're just like, what would be really incredible here is deceiving them by motioning Trent Williams to the other side of the line of scrimmage and then running where he should have been and not getting the first down.
And then did you see the one? Because they ran it a few times. And they ran it in the 3rd or the 4th quarter. Williams got like a 1-on-1 with a DB, bro, and it was just football porn. Like it was
That's
just
what I thought you were talking about. I was like,
Yeah.
that was amazing.
No, that part of it was awesome. But it was in that situation because he got called for the penalty and
Yeah.
it screwed him.
on the
That
first
was
one.
just
Yeah.
like
That's right.
that was like
Yeah, I
a dude.
remember
If you're
now.
just, it's like, dude, if you're just sneaking the football, just leave him there. It's fine. He doesn't need emotion. Like, stop overthinking this.
Yeah.
That was where I was going with that. But yes, I agree. And you know what? Like, honestly, I'll tell you what, Quentin. One of those names, two of those names that get me really excited are Pep Hamilton and Mike Kafka. Obviously, the connection. He's a local dude. Like, actually, one of my buddies is like his like cousin, effectively. So like, you know,
Got
there's
insider info
there's-
coming from you, Ron.
well, I know nothing.
You
That's
gotta work
happening in
those
this game.
trails.
I have no knowledge of what's happening there, but like, it's like, you know, the Chicago kid, like that'd be a fun
Yeah.
story. And then I
So
like Pep Hamilton.
he has ties to Ryan Poles too from KC.
There you go. Right, exactly. So, and on top of it, you know, if it's not him for whatever reason, like I like Pep Hamilton because Pep Hamilton was in Indianapolis as the quarterback's coach when Andrew Luck had his best career season. He helped Herbert now in San Diego. He's the reason PJ Walker went from the freaking XFL to the Carolina Panthers. Like
I forgot
Pep
about
Hamilton
that.
is a high key quarterback whisperer. And I feel like there's nobody better that I would rather be working with Justin Fields. Because I'll tell you what, if he even makes Justin Fields 3/4 of what Justin Herbert is, I every Sunday am just going to be in a like euphoric mode because of just watching Justin Fields throw for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns every single weekend.
I mean, Jay Herbo just has a
So-
rocket launcher attached to his arm.
He does, but Fields has a great arm. Fields
It's
crushes on the deep ball, dude. Like, dude,
Oh.
like give me those elements of like the Air Coryell offense in today's game. Like, I just want, if the Bears aren't running the football, I want Fields rolling out to his right and throwing a bomb as often as
So-
possible.
I never realized this with Hamilton. I just looked it up because I was curious at how much he called plays before. He was Andrew Luck's offensive coordinator and quarterback coach at Stanford, and then went to Indy with Luck to be the offensive coordinator there for 3 years. I'm not sure how his offense did there for those 3 years, but I mean, the Colts were pretty good Andrew Luck's first few years. So
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. And that's that Colts connection too, because I just feel like the Colts somehow always manage to get it right. And I hate it.
yeah.
They're just like they're like the other Midwest friend of ours, but like they're actually a friend because they're in the AFC, but like
And they're
the-
run so much
they
better.
would be
Yeah.
they would be the Packers if like
I
they were
kind of
the
liked them
AFC
until
North.
2006, and then I just cut
you
off
can't
my
get
relationship
back.
with them.
Fuck the Colts. But yeah,
Oh,
I think that pretty much sums everything up. I guess we'll be back with you when we make our next hire, which will be an offensive coordinator. And do we know the status? You guys said Sean Desai may or may not be back.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he came back,
He didn't do a
mainly
bad job,
because the main reason I think is they were so Eberflus runs a lot of the same man match concepts as what Desai was doing. From what I've read, at least I haven't dug into film or anything on it, but those man match concepts in the zone coverages are somewhat similar, and you can even see it in the stats. Like the Bears ran the most coverages last year of any team that were indistinguishable as far as PFF was concerned. Like they couldn't tell what the hell we were doing, whether it was zone or man.
Yeah, like
The team with the second most,
coverage.
the team with the second most was Eberflus in the Colts. So they have some kind of similarities there in the disguising that they were doing, which is why I wouldn't be shocked if he was back. But he's also not Eberflus's guy, so it's hard to know.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Bdon. I need you to do me one quick favor before you kindly, take us out of here for the evening. Can you clip what Quintin just said? Because any football nerd knows that was absolute gold. And like, I want to hear that on repeat as I want to fall asleep tonight. It's just him breaking down the coverages are so unrecognizable in like these two match and just like, oh, it was incredible. I'm sorry.
Well, and
I'm nerding out over here, guys. I'm trying to be excited about the Chicago Bears.
One more part of the suckfest that's going to drive up the number of turnovers that we get this year. I think
100%.
I think like if you match Eberflus with Desai or with another like-minded defensive coordinator with what Eberflus had, And then 2, a couple additions, obviously, in the secondary. Most importantly, I think we have a defense that gets a couple more turnovers. But as I alluded to before we close out, obviously we want to thank everyone for joining us today on today's live show. Quintin, thank you for taking the time for an emergency podcast because our resident Eberflus connoisseur, our guy, Eberflus, at Buttkiss Stats, and then Joey Ricotta at the Riot 326, as well as Ron Luce at Luce on Tap. I'm Brandon Suarez. You can follow me at Bdon 300. Then don't forget to throw our main account and follow at Bears on Tap. But Joey has a gift from us from our friend Cody on Tap of the best tweets from this past weekend regarding the guy who hasn't taken a shower all season long, Mr. Aaron Rodgers. So, Joey, go ahead and take us on out of here with the best tweets about Aaron Rodgers after their loss to the San Francisco 49ers this past weekend.
So I got to find it first, but there's one thing I wanted to mention too that I wanted to get off my chest real quick about Eberflus and this whole situation with like Ryan Poles or being hired. But I think it's awesome. Like you guys were talking about earlier in the show that how he's great with developing defensive players, whether it be linebackers, whatever. He's really good at developing defensive players and even guys that are like taken in the mid rounds of drafts. I think that's great because Ryan Poles, like he's shown that he's very capable of developing or drafting well on the offensive side of the ball too. Like he's drafted pretty decently as far as lineman goes, and he's a former lineman. So now you've got this you've got this guy on the defensive side of the ball that can develop talent defensively and draft picks that maybe you'd find in the later rounds. And you've got a guy that can draft well or is good at identifying talent on the offensive side of the ball as a GM and offensive line wise. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's just making me even more positive about this whole thing. So that's just something I wanted to share because I don't know. We didn't really mention Ryan Poles in this episode that much, but like them together, I think
it's important to state, and Quintin stated it before we started the episode. Don't get it misconstrued that Eberflus is a Ryan Poles guy. This was a decision that was made
right
probably a couple days back, but as you guys know, the Bears are very calculated with how they release news. So obviously, if they were to name a head coach before a GM, guys like us would lose every last strand of hair that we have on our heads. Like we would just pull it all the fuck out. So
I guess the one thing I would say there is think about when the second interviews were announced and think about when Ryan Poles was hired.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys who were coming in for second interviews were already known when Ryan Poles was hired.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
maybe that means he had a choice among an approved group. I don't know, but
that'll probably leave the stove hot though for the OC though, and the decision on the DC and everything else. That the stove will be hot for all those decisions.
Yeah, and I don't think like my whole thing wasn't like he handpicked him. Like he obviously did pick him eventually, but like they had their finalists in order. You know, that was pretty clear. Like looking at the timeline and stuff like you guys were talking about, but I just think it's a pretty perfect matching. Like once you actually break it down, like I think they will work together nicely and like they can bounce ideas off each other. First of all, you always want to build your roster around what your coach's strengths are and like what he wants to do. But just looking at it from the side of like, okay, you're really good at the defensive side of the ball, and I'm pretty good at the offensive side of the ball. Not to say that Poles can't identify talent on the defensive side of the ball either, but just being able to bounce that off the ideas off of your head coach and to get him guys that he feels comfortable with and he wants to use in his system. I don't know, man. It's all lining up for me. I like it a lot.
So from everything I've read and heard, this combo, these two, the trenches are going to matter a lot to them, which is just always nice to hear.
Yes. I was an offensive lineman in college. So like this is exactly what I was hoping to hear. But and guys, just to add on to your points too, really quickly before I don't beat on dying to close this down. We have to hear the best Aaron Rodgers tweets of the weekend. But like I
was checking to see if he was balding yet, because he will be balding by the time he leaves Chicago because it's a stressful job.
As long as he's not wearing visors, we're okay. But like the funny thing with the choices, right? Because it was like George and Ted really liked Dan Quinn, and then like Dungy and Polian really liked Caldwell, and then it was like Poles came in, interviewed all three of them, was like, I don't care what either of you two like. I like this guy, and went with him. And that's like the general report right now. So like, I at least like that he like was okay enough to be like, you know what? I know you guys each like these groups, but like, I'm gonna take the dude that you guys thought was third because you know what? There's something I see here, and that connection is so key. Like you said, Quentin, and even like you said, Joey, like when you have that feeling, that good feeling, like Quentin through the stats and all the deep, incredible statistics that you do, because I read through that like it's candy for me. And Joey, like as you said too, with the whole like kind of a match, it feels like a good match. It really does. Like, give me good trenches football. Give me like responsible defense that can take away the football. With like a bunch of no-namers. Like, give me that old Tampa 2 feel. Like, I don't hate that. Like, I think that can still win ball games. Sure, it's a very open and spread game. Like, but you don't think the OC is going to be able to come in and adapt to like the more spread and like we can run power with like a wing back for in the shotgun with like a little bit of an outside zone play for Montgomery. Don't you worry. Like, there's ways to give that like power football element to today's game, and I think these guys are going to do it. And it feels like Chicago football, which like at the like I feel like I'm transforming into the mustache guy and going "Da Bears," like it appeases that, but it also just appeases like what makes sense. I think for the sake of the roster build right now, and like going forward, like running quarterbacks have always succeeded more with a team that can run with them, and then also be able to throw. And I think the Bears are going to have the best of both worlds, and it's exciting. It's an exciting thing to think about.
Yeah, and I think in year 2, Uncle Sean has an interview lined up with the Seahawks from a lot. But I think in year 2, with Fields, you'll see more confidence in his running, because I think a lot in year 1, you saw him trying to box himself in, trying to stay in the pocket, trying to do too much, trying to appease Dan Orlovsky's bitch ass, okay? Fuck what Dan Orlovsky has to say about you, Mr. Fields. Go out there and do your thing, sideline to sideline. If you got to run it, you got to run it. You are a weapon when you use your legs just as much as you are when you use your arms. So I think, like, with a new head coach that isn't an absolute sack of shit like our old head coach, the development, like Quentin said and hammered home, is the most important part of this hire. And that's the thing that I think will pay dividends ultimately in the win column. And hopefully, since I'm the biggest meatball on the pod, one day they bring that Lombardi trophy back to Chicago. So with that being said, Joey, I hope you found our clip of Aaron Rodgers' tweets, and we'll roll on out of here with the best or the worst of, say any word on a possible press conference. I have not seen anything yet, unless Ron has. Ron, you're muted.
I am muted. You're right. That was something I wanted to touch on, of just like, is there a possible one? I didn't know if any of you guys knew really quick. I can't wait to hear this.
I didn't see one.
some.
I've been looking on my YouTube.
Polls has got to be tomorrow, right? Like, I'm assuming.
I guess we'll find out.
They'll probably honestly do
gotta be
both.
soon.
Hey,
they'll probably do them both together.
Bdon.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, am I not wrong in saying that our listeners and our fans can find that information when it happens and is known at www.ontapsportsnet.com? I think that's fair, right? I think that's a very
over under a half
Keep
fired
up with
up.
us.
What'd you say?
Over under a half fired up in that press conference.
I'd say under.
Yeah.
Me too.
Ooh, I say over.
Yeah.
I say over.
For this
Leave
one?
the over.
They better not do it.
Some maybe a few fluid situations thrown in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm fired up.
I'm just excited. I guess, I'll say this because as someone who's had to fucking do the desk drawer thing with my dinghy and listen to Matt Nagy press conferences for years and like try to take away anything tangible to put in an article or anything. I give credit to the Dan Wiederers and the Hogues and all those guys, because they didn't give us a goddamn thing for the last 3 or 4 years, ever since Ryan Pace has been around. So, like I kind of said last night, maybe they'll peel back the curtain more and be a little bit more open. And if not, it's what it is. But I at least feel that every time we step into a press conference, it's not just like what you read in a press release. You know what I'm saying? Like something that could have been a fucking email.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of things that you can criticize Ryan Pace for, and we have on this show many times. And there's a lot of things that he's done well too. But one thing that he always consistently did or didn't do was speak to the media. Like, he didn't talk very often. He wasn't out there in the public, and that's one of the things that I think is very like it's okay to criticize him for that, because we as fans, I think we deserve to hear from him or anyone that's in charge once in a while. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're telling us much information at all. I would like more information. That's great. Like, I want all the information I can get, but like, he wasn't giving us anything. He wasn't even talking really at all to the media. And that's just, I would like to see that type of change from, Mr. Poles. And maybe we get that. He seems kind of like an open guy. I mean, he seems like he's pretty relatable, so we'll see.
And with that being said, we are Bears on Tap. Give our account a follow at Bears on Tap. And I think, like I said, it's time to fire up that freezer burn toe bastard Aaron Rodgers with the best tweets from this weekend after the Packers were eliminated.
Let's fucking go.
But it also seemed like Aaron Rodgers was distracted last night, like someone was in his head. I don't know. Skip Bayless, my favorite tweet of the weekend, just for you, Gage. Now trending, Aaron Rodgers. Wish I thought of that. I've basically been calling him that for the last decade on TV. All I hear from across the debate desk on Undisputed is, quote unquote, transcendent thrower of football, transcendently fraudulent. And last but not least, imagine
Joey's Kankakee
Just
Wi-Fi.
imagine.
Joey, what's going on over there in the mean streets of Rockford? This is the best part, dude. This is the like, oh no.
Oh no.
We lost Joey.
Did Joey
Joey,
mute himself?
can you say something? Say
Yeah,
something.
I'm saying something. What happened?
Oh, you're fine.
All right, so the tweet was, can you imagine?
Oh, wait a second. You fucking idiot. That was on me. I fucking muted it halfway through.
You jag bag.
I'm the
You
biggest jag off. I muted it because I didn't want like my fucking laughing to fuck up because somebody else was talking. But literally, it's me on the mic. All right, let me just play this. I don't know where it was at.
Aaron Rodgers, which I thought I've basically been calling him that for the last decade on TV. All I hear from across the debate desk on Undisputed is, quote unquote, transcendent thrower of football, transcendently fraudulent. And last but not least, imagine leaving a franchise in turmoil for a full offseason. Announce you're coming back by using a reference from The Last Dance, like you're Michael Jordan, and then lose at home as a home favorite in the first game of the playoffs. You don't have to imagine it. It actually happened.
Oh, shit.
I love when Cody gets petty, because when Cody gets petty, it's
a wrap. Yeah.
Done.
But, like I said, with that being said, we are Bears on Tap. We will be back with you probably sooner rather than later, as the Bears are already acting aggressively in filling this coaching staff. But go ahead and give my co-host a follow at Buttkiss Stats to the right. To the right of me. Up top, we got Ron Luce, and the other way, I'm like backwards. I'm inverted. To the left of me, to the right, whatever side of me that is the GOAT man, the cheese guy, Mr. Mush himself, the Riot 326.
Hey, fuck off, asshole. The Oilers.
The Oilers won. We won a squad bet tonight, dude.
You won a squad bet.
Well,
I won something else. Whatever.
Oilers on Tap commences with a nice, good old-fashioned Bdon.
Bdon.
Bdon. Polls hard for Ryan.
Bdon.